Hello and welcome to episode 68 of the Spotlight Games podcast. My name is Patrick, and today we're going to be talking about the Dead Space remake, first impressions. We're going to be talking about, is Uncharted coming to PlayStation 5? We're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff, and we're going to be talking about all that stuff with my sweet, sweet dumpster boy, Cayman Darty. Cayman, how we doing?
Patrick, I'm doing good.
Ooh, sounded a little spicy there.
Doing good.
Oh boy, we're getting to Cayman. I don't know that we've ever gotten before on this show.
Maybe we'll find out.
How's your week going? I mean, I know we're early in the week, but
Whew. You know what? Let me tell you, Patrick.
tell me.
I'm excited.
Ooh, I love an excited dumpster boy. Why are you excited?
I'm excited, Patrick, because tonight marks our last recording of the week, which means I can finally dedicate some time to playing some video games.
Hell yeah! What are you playing first after we record tonight?
I'm thinking it's time to get into a little game called Dead Space, but I don't want to say too much because I know you're going to.
Sure. I'm not going to go too deep because we're going to be reviewing it for the show soon with Boston Mike. A little part 2 to the Callisto Protocol discussion. But at least, for our folks out there that are interested in what we're thinking, I want to at least say, hey, I've been playing. Here's what I think. But we're going to get into that because we have a lot of video game stuff to talk about, because this is the Spotlight Games podcast where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod, like we are right now. We got people in the chat right now. Hello, my friends. How are we? We got who's here? We got John. Of course, we got John in the chat.
Of course, we got John.
Why would it not? Why would it be anyone other than John? How you doing, John? But yeah, go follow us on Twitch so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. Cayman, we have, as we've talked about for the last several weeks, we've launched another podcast, Spotlight TV. We just dropped yesterday, last evening, as of recording, a deep dive into episode 3 of HBO's The Last of Us. Some are calling one of the greatest episodes of television ever. I might be one of those. Some
the one. I'm definitely one.
So if you're interested in a deep dive of that episode, if you want to cry with us, go follow Spotlight TV. Find them on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon/Audible podcasts, and give it a listen, give it a download, give it a follow, give it a subscribe. Because look, I said it last week. I'm gonna toot the horn. I feel like we're making good shit. I think that podcast is pretty good. I think we got a lot of good insight because we played these games so many times. So if you like The Last of Us, give it a look-see, give it a listen. But depending on time, we might talk a little spoilery Last of Us episode 4, what we hope to see in episode 4 at the very, very end of the show. So don't worry right now if you're like, I don't want to know what your spoiler thoughts are. It'll be at the very end. But Cayman, that's not the only podcast that we released this week so far, is it?
It's true.
What else did we do?
Come out today for Save Trash Cinema, the podcast.
Ooh,
yeah. Save Trash Cinema, the podcast is live today. If you are wherever you are, whatever you're doing is live. Guess what? You can watch it, or if you can't watch it, you can listen. This episode is entirely dedicated to Days of the Dead 2023, which is a huge horror convention in the Southeast that brings along a lot of familiar faces and new faces of the genre. They have panels, they have autograph signings, they have so many vendors. I spent so much money. I don't want to talk about it. But it is a fantastic time. That entire episode is a recap of the week. We tell some really great anecdotes about some of the people we met, including none other than Damian Leone and David Howard Thornton from potentially the next huge horror franchise, Terrifier. We also got to meet one of my heroes, the founder of Troma Films, Troma Entertainment, none other than Lloyd Kaufman. We talk about that. We talk about some other amazing people that we met along the way. And man, I'm just telling you, it's a really fun discussion. It's a trash talk episode. So we do like a roundtable discussion telling some of our favorite moments over the weekend. We also were a little intoxicated for it.
Oh, come on.
We did. I mean, look, when you leave a convention, a 3-day convention, Like you're gonna be a little torn up if you
Oh
know
yeah,
what I mean.
it's
So
in a lot of places.
this potentially could be the first day I have been sober
Woo!
in multiple days, and you guys are all welcome for that because I can be even spicier
I mean, that's
sometimes.
true. I gotta say though, Cayman, from where I'm sitting,
Mm,
I can feel a little rejuvenation in the dumpster boy. I can feel there's an energy coming from you, and I think it's
yeah.
from Days of the Dead.
Look, man, it's fantastic. Like I said, we met a lot of really cool people, and I can tell you right now, we have some exciting stuff lined up from STC that occurred over the weekend. So we got some cool people that might be making a guest appearance on some future episodes. Wink,
Is
wink.
it Gary Busey? You'll have to find out.
He's been dead for years. Actually, I don't think Gary Busey is dead, but honestly, he probably is, and no one would know the difference. But no.
he died after Point Break.
I can say just a little quick anecdote. I'm not sure if we covered this on the episode, but Malcolm McDowell was there, and I might have definitely ran directly into him while walking out of the
Ooh.
bathroom.
Oh boy.
And honestly, super nice. I
Oh
was
really?
I was expecting him to be really shitty because he always plays like kind of pompous assholes. But in
Sure.
real life, like actually a nice guy. Like I ran into him, was like, I'm so sorry. I opened the door and we just boop. I said, I'm so sorry. And he looked at me in that deep, sultry British
Oh
accent.
yeah.
It was
I'm
just like
curious.
he was like, oh,
Was he there promoting his 2022 picture with Mark Wahlberg, Father Stu? Excuse me, Father Stu?
Father Stew. Isn't it just Stew now?
I mean, you're asking the wrong guy.
Where's Boston Mike when you need him?
I know. I just Googled Malcolm McDowell just to remind myself the face. It's like, oh, of course that's Malcolm McDowell. And the fourth thing on his suggested movies is Father Stu.
Well, I
So,
mean, considering that his pedigree is far and wide on all sorts of films, probably
yes.
not that. Actually, a lot of what his panel was about Clockwork Orange,
Hmm.
and then he kind of did like it's interesting. He talked about Clockwork Orange. He talked about being in Rob Zombie's Halloween films, and genuinely, honestly, nice guy.
Oh, yeah.
He was very polite when I ran into him, which if I mean, honestly, he didn't have a reason to be polite, but he was. So,
I
good on
mean,
him.
run into someone like you out of the bathroom.
Fair.
It's 50-50.
True.
It's 50-50.
It
Well,
is.
Cayman, I'm glad you had a great time. I haven't listened to the episode yet, but it's the first thing I'm going to do when we're done here because I can't wait to hear all about the experience this weekend. But why don't we talk about some video games? What do you think?
I think that's probably what this podcast is for.
Fantastic. So we're going to start like we always start our episodes with what we've been playing. I feel like maybe you've not been playing much based on what you said at the top of the show. Do you have anything to report?
Actually, I don't, which makes me like a really shitty guest host or
No,
guest host. I guess I'm not a guest host at this point,
you're
probably,
not a
since
guest
we've been
host.
doing every episode together. No, I
Correct.
mean, I'm like a really shitty host of a video game show that hasn't played a video game
No,
in
no, no.
a week.
No. You're the subject matter expert. You're here sharing your opinions straight from the dumpster. But then, so I will say then I have been playing some games.
Please, I know you have.
So it's a bit of a mixed bag for me this week, but the main thing. So one of the stories we're going to be talking about today is going to be about the Xbox Developer _ Direct that happened last week, and one of the games that was shadow dropped, Hi-Fi Rush. I've been playing that. I'm going to talk about that during that segment. I also have been playing The Last of Us Part 1 going along with the show. Just look.
Can we have hold on? Can we have a counter that pops up every time you say like it's every time you've been playing The Last of Us? We have a counter that pops up.
I think if there's a dedicated fan out there that wants to go through all of our video podcasts and clip together all the times I've said I'm playing The Last of Us, I can't pay you, but I'd appreciate it. But no, I had this idea, and handsome Tony in the chat saying that's actually brilliant. I think so. I'm playing. So this week I stopped after the section in the game with Bill, since this episode was all about Bill and that situation. So and then next week, once I see where they go, I'm gonna play to that point in the game and just see. It's like a fun thought exercise of like seeing 1-to-1 what's different, what's the same, that kind of thing.
Question. I'm curious on how you're doing this.
Okay.
So are you basing off of what you see in the preview for the following episode, playing up to where you think it ends, or are you watching the episode, sitting down, and then playing up to where it ends?
That's a great question. So I'm kind of doing it's kind of like a both
Mm-hmm.
situation. So like leading into the episode with Bill,
Mm-hmm.
what I did was I played through like half of the Bill's Town chapter, watched the episode, finished that chapter, and then got up to the point in which in the game leading into the Pittsburgh chapter. Because I assume that's what the next episode will cover. So then what I'm gonna do later this week, Cayman,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Thursday or Friday, I'm going to play a little bit of that chapter so that because ideally what I'd like to do is
Mm-hmm.
have as much as they cover in the game played before we record Spotlight TV Monday evening. So I kind of
Okay.
front loaded a little bit so that
Sure.
after the show, maybe Sunday night I play a little bit, and then Monday after work I play a little bit before we record. So I'm kind of trying to piece it together that way so that I don't have to play potentially like 2 or 3 hours of a game before we record a podcast.
I think that's a
Um,
smart idea.
yeah, but I'm having a lot of fun with it so far. And
Yeah.
also because anytime I've ever played this game, then at this point, like 9 times I've played it, it's like not one sitting, obviously, but like it's all the way through. I'll play as much as I want to play a night, and then I'll come back the next night and I'll just keep going until I finish. So
Sure.
it's been kind of fun purposefully delaying it and almost in a way treating it like a serialized thing. Um, so yeah, it's been cool and it's been fun. Like we both have like the memory of like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like this, but being able to like actually experience it and like know firsthand, like, oh no, this is exactly what happened because I just did it. It's been fun to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
I've also been playing Dead Space on the PlayStation 5.
Ooh.
And I don't want to go too deep. Like I said at the
Okay.
top of the show, we're going to be doing a full review with Boston Mike here shortly. Probably
Sure.
not next week, probably the week after, because I think we're going to have a guest next week from across the pond, Cayman, which we'll get into. But what I do want to say to our listeners and viewers that maybe if you're out there like, I only make decisions after I hear what Patrick and Cayman think. If that's how you go, you're insane.
You are insane.
But I want to at least respect your choice, your right to choice. And I got to say, this is a fucking home run. This video game.
I love to hear
I've
it.
so far played about 8 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Friday and Saturday of this past weekend, I did like a couple 4-hour sessions late into the evening, and it is it just checks all the boxes. Like it is in this at the same time. It is the Dead Space I fell in love with in 2008, but it is improved in every single category. Obviously, things like graphics, that's a no-brainer, right? Animations, that's a no-brainer, things like that. But there's also a lot of quality of life touches that they added that's really, I think, elevated. Things like in the first game, we might have forgotten, Isaac Clarke didn't originally speak in the first game.
Sure.
Silent protagonist, giving him a voice and actually having him give a performance. Things like this, like auto saving is a lot better in this game. There are like they've kind of reworked some of the weapons and added things like alternate fire, and it actually works in this game, unlike how it did in Callisto Protocol. And there's a bunch of stuff like that. And while I do wish they had gone a little bit more the Resident Evil 2 remake route, and what I mean by that is maybe make some structural decisions to the game to improve it. I do wish they had maybe adjusted some things, which we'll get into in the review. But overall, it feels like I'm playing Dead Space for the first time, like I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that is like when I close my eyes and imagine playing Dead Space, I imagine what it would look like on a PS5. But then if I actually go back and play the 2008 version, it's going to look like it's being run by a shoebox and some wire.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so
Oh
it's
no,
like
absolutely.
it really it's I think the best thing I can say is I hope to the stars above
Mm-hmm.
that they make Dead Space 2
Yeah.
and then I hope that they make a new Dead Space 3 and it's not a remake of Dead Space 3 and they go their own way with
Hear
it
me out.
because yes, listening.
Dead Space 3 isn't a bad game. Dead Space 3 was ruined by EA's greedy bullshit at the time.
I think there is truth to that for
There
sure.
is some really good ideas in Dead Space 3. I love the idea of having like the asynchronized co-op mode.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. You never see it.
Yeah.
And I think was a brilliant touch.
A little ahead of its time.
A little ahead of its time for sure. I think that a lot of that game suffer from the fact that EA tried to cram in so many microtransactions, so much extraneous bullshit DLC that
Yep.
wasn't needed, and then a lot of things just completely blocked entirely by a paywall.
Right. And they shoehorned in the multiplayer of the game,
Yeah.
and that was obviously a sign of the times, like where it's like what 2012, 13 at this point. They're like, every game has multiplayer, we gotta do multiplayer. And I guarantee you that that severely impacted development of the single player campaign. And
100%.
so because and it also it kind of Dead Space 3 falls into the trap that a lot of people feel the Resident Evil series fell into, like with 6, where it's like, or actually maybe even more so with 5, although 5 still does have some horror elements, where 6 is like, this is just an high flying action game at this point. And that's kind of like what Dead Space 3 turned into, which I think it's so funny playing Dead Space 1 after having recently, I say recent, it was a couple years ago, but I never at the time put together that Dead Space is Resident Evil, just like in space. And like it very much is a Resident Evil game. Like you can tell Glenn Schofield and the team from way back, they're like, oh, Resident Evil 4 is really, really good. Let's make that in space. And I think I never put 2 and 2 together, that I think that's why I love Dead Space so much, because I love Resident Evil so much. But yeah, I just big fan of this. And if you are considering getting it, I highly recommend you get it. Because also another thing, I've not experienced this yet because I've not finished the game. There's a new alternate ending, which is cool. That makes me want to do a New Game Plus, because I think you get it via New Game Plus. But
I do love it. I love horror video games that give you a New Game Plus, because I do feel like kind of the thrill of playing like a horror game is like that initial playthrough where you're very weak.
Yep.
And everything's terrifying. By the end, your shit's leveled up and you're much more capable, and that's kind of the design. And I do love a New Game Plus, especially if there's new things involved in the New Game Plus, where you can come back in fully loaded with
and
maxed out weapons. You can just come in and just throw in hams, right?
Oh yeah.
And then like you can actually like you feel more obligated to be like, I can explore without being punished by some of the more survival horror aspects of a game.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, what absolutely devastated the Callisto Protocol, not having that launch.
Yeah. And to take it a step further, something that it seems like Dead Space is doing with this remake, something that Resident Evil does with their New Game Pluses. Normally, there is more content in a New Game Plus with these kinds of games. And that is also another like carrot for me to be like, oh, I want to play this again, because now I can get a new ending. There's a new collectible in the New Game Plus mode. Like these are the kinds of things that like make me want to go back and play. And to your point, have that experience of being a god in this scary world. And so, yeah, I'm over the moon about it. There are things I wish they did differently, but that's the way it goes. That's the way the news goes. But yeah, so with that being said, Cayman, I thought it might make sense to talk a little bit about the news.
Let's talk a little bit about the news.
How do you feel about that?
I love it.
So last week, some of you might say old news. This was Wednesday of last week. You recorded Tuesday, but that's the way our recording schedule goes. So fucking write me a letter. Write me a letter. Yeah.
I don't read letters. I can't read.
So I watched this as it was coming out live. Cayman, I think you watched the replay of it.
I did.
And I figured what we could do. They talked about 5 games when they told us they were going to talk about 4. So let's just talk about them. And if we're not interested, let's just say, fuck it. We don't want to talk about it. So this is the way the show went. They started out with Mojang Studios. I still don't know how to say it. Talking Minecraft Legends. Gave it a release date, April 18th, 2023. So that's pretty soon. One of the few games that they said is coming in the 12-month window that's actually going to come in the 12-month window. And did this do anything for you, Cayman? Because I'm really torn on this. because I've never been a Minecraft guy. I think subjectively it is an ugly as fuck game.
Oh
I
yeah, I
don't
don't think
like.
anyone questions that.
Okay, I figure there's some people out there that think, oh man, this is so pretty.
Hmm.
Whatever.
Those people are lying.
Because like it looks at the core of it like it's a cool concept. Like there's base building in it, there's like tower defense in it. It's multiplayer, it's single player, it's PvP, it's PvE. Like it's kind of mixing a lot of these cool things, but it's in Minecraft. And I just like don't care about Minecraft. But I'm curious if anything did anything for you on this game.
Let me tell you the biggest turnoff I had, and that is base building.
You're not a base builder.
I just don't enjoy it. Like I just don't enjoy base building. I'd be doing it wrong. Like I used to love playing The Sims back in the day, where you could build your own little home and you can make like your dream home. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But like I just don't know, man. I'm not a big base building guy. I don't know. I got some vibes from like Fallout 4, where I was like fucking Preston popping up on the screen being like, another settlement needs your attention. Like, shut the fuck up, dude. No, they
Incredible
don't.
Preston impression.
Thank you. I'm like,
Preston.
no. Yeah, I don't know, man. This game just didn't do anything for me. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you know what? No, I'll keep my opinions to each individual topic.
Okay. Yeah. Well, at the end, we'll circle back and be like, general score. What do you think, kind of thing. So yeah, I think there is an audience for this game, and I think this game could be a hit. It doesn't speak to me, and that's okay. Next up, it was Turn 10 Studios talking about Forza Motorsport. And then after that, it was Tango Gameworks talking about Hi-Fi Rush. No, this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say about Forza Motorsport. And I think I can speak for you when I say this.
Yes.
I don't give a shit about car games. Like
absolutely not.
There is a racing game that I enjoy, and it's called Mario Kart. And there are a few other racing games that can get me interested.
There's one racing game that should be held 3 racing games that should be held at high esteem.
Let's count them.
Mario Kart. Nailed that one. Need for Speed Underground 2.
Yep.
Burnout 3 Takedown.
Let's go.
That's the only games you need, really, guys. Sure. That's literally the only games you need.
And maybe a nostalgic nod to Road Rash on the Sega Genesis.
Ooh, good call. Good call.
But yeah, I just don't care about the genre anymore. And there is a huge audience for it, but like especially I don't care about racing simulators. Like the Forzas, the Gran Turismos, just not my bag. But it seems like if it is your bag, it looks really cool. However, no release date, which is a huge red flag, I think.
That was very interesting. I definitely thought that we were getting like a summer release date.
Me too. So yeah, I bet Xbox folks are a little upsetty about that. But yeah, it was Forza, that's for sure. And then after this was a surprise. So going into the direct, they said they were just going to talk about 4 games. It was going to be Minecraft, Forza, Elder Scrolls Online, and Redfall. And then they were like, hey, surprise, Tango Gameworks, the creators of Ghostwire Tokyo, which we talked about a few weeks ago that you played, and Evil Dead 1 and 2 games, at least the first one that we both liked a lot back in the day. I don't remember if you played 2, but I didn't. And totally surprised us with this game that looks in no way, shape, or form and feels in no way, shape, or form like a Tango Gameworks game. It's called Hi-Fi Rush. It is a third-person action rhythm game. So you play as this character called Chai, and it very much has this like anime-esque art style. And it's like a third-person action game where you're beating up people with this guitar arm to the beat of music. And they shadow dropped it, and it came out that day, like an hour later. And I've been playing a good amount of it. But I'm curious if this, because you don't have an Xbox One S or X. And I'm curious if a game like this does anything for you to move the needle toward getting an Xbox to play a game like this.
Yeah, so that's a really good question, actually. Just from the reveal of the game, I will say that this is the highlight of the direct for me. Yeah. Or excuse me, the Xbox developer _ direct. I have to get the title correct because
thank you.
Who made that fucking title? This was the highlight of the direct. The game looks really cool. I got a lot of Sunset Overdrive vibes, which I did play Sunset Overdrive, and honestly, put about 5 hours in and was like, yeah, I get the gist. I'm this is fine. So I think my problem, right, is that it doesn't. Like, it looks really cool. And there's probably like this game is probably awesome, honestly. But like, I don't know, like this doesn't hit on the same level as something like Starfield does for me.
Sure. Yeah.
Starfield moves the needle. Starfield makes me want to actually get an Xbox or
Yeah.
like the new Xbox and get the nice one that's big fat boy, the big
Yeah. Oh,
chonker
yeah.
refrigerator, right? But like a game like this, like while it looks really cool, like I just don't think that's the driving force for me. I think the coolest part about this was that they shadow dropped it, which is something we've always talked about wanting to see someone do. And now we're seeing it in action. And
Yeah.
like, I don't know if that was the best move or was a bad move. And honestly, like when it first was announced, everyone was like super hyped about it. And then I just feel like the discourse on Twitter has just dried up.
Really? I feel like I'm still hearing a good amount of people
The
talk about
only
it.
person that I hear anything about this game from is Michael Santiago,
Sure.
who
Sure.
was on. We had Michael on back shit like right after we first started. He was like
Yeah.
one of our
Yeah. We need
first
to get him back
guests.
on the show. He was,
Yeah,
I think, our
love
very
Mike.
first guest, actually.
Yeah, and so like I mean, outside of him, like I don't like no one's really talking about it, and I don't know if like because everything I've heard when people do talk about it, everyone's very high on it,
Yeah.
which is awesome because like that's great. We need this, right? Doesn't matter what console you play on. You want
Yeah.
competition because if you look at Marvel right now, Marvel has gone so long without competition
Yeah.
that their shit is kind of stale because they don't have to really do much anymore. So like this is really important that we get great games across the board from both Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo because it just drives the quality of content from all sides, right?
For sure. Yeah.
So like I'm glad like that if people are liking this, but like I'm also worried that like so a lot of people just ignored it outright as well. That just aren't as connected as we are. Cause like a lot of people still like they buy video games based on trailers that they see online. They
Yeah.
buy video games based on reviews. They buy video. So I don't know if shadow dropping, while in theory is a lot of fun, I don't know if it works as well. And
Sure.
that gives me a little bit of pause as to like that. But I know you've played it.
Yeah.
So instead of me talking all sorts of nonsense, why don't you jump in and make me look like a fool?
Oh, I don't. I would never like to make you look like a fool.
Oh, you
Here's
won't,
what I
Chad.
will say though. Before I talk about a little bit about my thoughts on the game, I do think it strikes me. I'm so interested to see how well this game is downloaded, or how much rather this game is downloaded from Xbox Game Pass, because in a way, it almost feels like this game was made for the games industry. Because I feel like at this point, shadow dropping a game, I think, only works for people who are tuned in to gaming, which
Yeah.
is a very big audience. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I think it's always a fun thing, like when we're talking about like, oh yeah, at this next Nintendo Direct, what if they just say, here's Zelda Wind Waker HD for Nintendo Switch, and it's out now. Like, it's a fun thing to theorize, but in practice, I think it only works for very few titles. And I actually think this is one of them. And the reason why, I don't think I was playing the trailer a little bit earlier while you were talking, but I don't know that it's a game that really translates very well until you play it.
Mm.
Because I was talking to Rose last night. She was out and then she came home to me playing it. And what I told her was, this game is so satisfying to play
Yeah.
because the gameplay, it just works. Like, so the premise being, like I mentioned, it's an action rhythm game. You're supposed to hit enemies on the beat, similar to Metal Hellsinger, which is a game we talked about last year, but it was like death metal first-person shooter in hell. This is much more my speed. This is cartoony third-person action, has a story to tell. It's a bit of a thin story, but it's very much like, it's a lot more of a fun vibe than Metal Hellsinger was. And like, essentially what I was saying to Rose was like, I think this would actually be a good game for you to learn like fast combat in, because it is just music. Like if you have no rhythm, you can't play this game. They're like they say like, oh, if you don't hit on the beat.
Okay, you just alienated every white person.
I'm a white guy, and I'm
Well,
having a
you
great time
also
with it.
come from musical theater, so
That's
you're
fair.
one of the rare ones of us. One
That's
of us.
fair.
I'm someone who has absolutely zero rhythm.
Like I would be interested to see you play it and see if I'm wrong, but I think their whole thing in the trailer was like, if you can't hit it on the beat, it's just fine. You can like it'll still work. You just get like extra points by hitting it on the beat. But I found when just button mashing, it actually kind of breaks my brain because everything in the world is on beat. The way you walk is on beat. The way they attack you is on beat. Like everything goes to the beat, which is essentially like a 4/4 if you know music. Like it's just a simple like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. That would be like, and so the X button would be X X X X, and the Y button would be Y Y. So it's a half note, and X is a quarter note, and so which this might sound like a different language,
It
but
is.
if you once you like just listen to the game, what's so cool about it is you can be playing and you can kind of get lost in a combo, but then you just think like, oh, I just need to be listening to the music and I will be back on track just fine. And it's like so satisfying
That's
to be
cool.
fighting like 15 enemies and just kind of like start checking out, and I'm just like pressing buttons to the beat essentially. And I'll like grapple to a guy on the beat, I'll dodge to the beat, I'll press X a few times on the beat, and like it's I think it's a really smart game in the way that it just works, with the asterisk being if you have rhythm. Like I would be concerned about someone playing this game without rhythm, but I hope I'm wrong. It just that's the impression I get while playing the game.
We need to figure out a way to do a let's play of both of us playing this game together so that we can see what it looks like when someone is like you, who is musically inclined, and
Sure.
someone who is me, who
That's a fun idea.
somehow has survived his whole life not even being able to walk correctly. So
I mean, hey, if we can figure it out, I would love to do that. But yeah, and it's also something that I'm noticing. It's pretty tutorial heavy. I would say the first hour is like one long tutorial level, and but like it is teaching you a lot, and I think it's lessons that you need to learn to enjoy the game. But it's the rare thing of I finished the first level and I finished the tutorial and I'm like, I get it, but like I don't know. I think it's maybe a gimmick. And then you play the second level and the third level and you're like, "Oh, it's getting better every level." Like it's really it's teaching you new things, you're getting new combos, you're getting new like you're learning more about how the world works, and it's I'm really enjoying it. I'm interested to see if it has legs. I don't know how long it is, but it's probably relatively short. I'm interested to see if people are talking about it in a month, 2 months, 6 months. In my kind of Twitter sphere, I'm seeing a lot of people saying this is like an early game of the year contender for them. I'm interested to see if that sticks, or if it's just this is the second game of the year after Dead Space, or I guess the first. I think this came out 2 days before Dead Space, technically. But yeah, so if you have an Xbox and you haven't tried it out, give it a shot because I'm having a great time with it. But and if you do, let me know what you think. But yeah, so that was Hi-Fi Rush from Tango Gameworks. And then after that, ZeniMax came on stage to talk about Elder Scrolls Online. They announced like a new DLC chapter coming, like a whole new section of Morrowind that they've built for the game. And didn't do anything for me, only because this is a game I purposefully do not play. Purposely do not play because it would devour my life. I think potentially. I think this is a game I wish I had as a kid.
Sure.
Because boy, we would have played this game 24/7.
Yeah.
But it
This
just
yeah.
yeah.
I agree 100%. I think my biggest issue, it's like same thing with like Final Fantasy 14 online, where it's just like I would love to try it, but I think one of my biggest issues isn't it similar to like Destiny right now, right? Where it's like shit. It's so far in that like
Yeah.
actually being able to really get the most of it, I just don't think it's possible anymore.
Yeah. I agree. And they made a point to be like, if you're a new player, this is the perfect time to jump in because you have access
always
to
say that.
30 past pieces of DLC. And I'm like, excuse me, that sounds fucking overwhelming.
Yeah.
That does not sound like something I want to do.
Dude, getting into Destiny 2 right now. It's like you log in and this is coming from someone who played like the first few expansions. But like getting back in, I tried to get back in at the latest expansion.
Mhm.
And I was so confused by everything that I was
Really?
like, I don't like this anymore. Like, I
Damn.
genuinely do not like this anymore. I'm so lost. This is not like this is so like the UI is so overloaded because there's so many things that I've missed that like I don't know how a new player gets into Destiny.
Oh boy.
So like that's why I'm like was really hoping they keep announcing more expansions, and I get why because there's a huge player base. But I'm like, I kind of wanted Destiny 3, so it's like a clean slate start, so I can get back in at ground level again.
Sure.
Because like I definitely don't think I could get back into Destiny 2 at this point. Like I tried, and it's
Yeah, that's one that's like super overwhelming to even
yeah,
consider. I think that is a curse of games as a service. Is like
yeah,
after a certain point, it's like I remember a couple years ago with Division 2, you had kept playing, and then there was a
yeah,
time where I was like, I want to jump back in. I played a bunch at launch, and then but I haven't played in a year and a half, and I tried, and it was like painfully overwhelming to jump into that game with like 4 expansions and
yeah.
parts of the city that weren't there before, and all these new systems, and I was like, not only do I have to relearn the game, but now I have to relearn or not relearn, learn all this new stuff. Super, super
Yeah,
overwhelming.
because you really are like I think that's a great example that you pointed out because at the end of it, it's like especially with Division 2, where you're like when you get into a game like that, you have to one learn the game, and then you also need to learn like roughly 2 full other games
Right.
because of all that new content. So if you have 30 expansion packs, you're now asking
Unbelievable.
it's like, hey guys, you need to learn like 15 games at once. If you and then also you're starting at 0.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, a lot of these people who are like diehard fans of this shit do not give a fuck.
Mm-mm.
They look at you and are like fresh meat, baby, and they just want to just
Mhm.
chomp down on that little booty of
Oh,
yours.
just give it a just give it a bite. Yeah, Tony makes it truly is like a
Yeah,
part-time job. And that's why I don't do MMOs. That's why I don't do games as a service because it's like it's just too much. Like
yeah,
I already being a part of 3 podcasts and
yes,
playing games for one of those podcasts, watching movies for another one, and watching TV shows for a different one. It's like I don't have time to do a games as a service. I just
no. Could you
because
imagine
then
having a kid as well and do all
fuck.
that? Oh, you
No, no, I couldn't. Then Spotlight Games would have to become Game X
yeah,
podcast. Like
yeah.
we just have to just talk about that one game, which hey, maybe that's what that audience would
You know
want.
that there's got to be at least 15 to 20 games that are just or podcasts that are just about like Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, for sure.
Just
Yeah.
we
The Elder Scrolls
exclusively talk
Online
about that.
cast.
Oh my god, it's actually a pretty good name though.
It's not bad.
I
Are
like
we about
that.
to start a 4th
I
podcast?
thought we were about to know you do it. Can we do it? No, we can't. We definitely can't do it.
No, we definitely can't. Okay, last thing from the developer underscore direct was this was the highlight for me. Even though I'm already really enjoying Hi-Fi Rush. Not a good name, by the way. Redfall. They showed Redfall. Arcane Austin. They gave us a date of May 2nd, and they gave us a pretty extended look at Redfall. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, Cayman, if this did anything for you, because this has kind of been a game that we've been a little trepidatious about.
Sure.
I'm a big Arcane fan, you not as much,
Hmm.
but I love their previous game, Prey. And this, it's a little vampire situation down in like, I don't know that they've, Redfall is a fictitious place, but it kind of feels like a bayou, like
It's
Louisiana
like in
ish
New Orleans, yeah,
type of
a little bit,
situation.
yeah.
But did this has the needle moved at all for you in terms of Redfall?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I think the needle did. The other direction though.
Oh.
This I don't know what it was about this trailer, but like I actually felt worse about this than when we saw it at the
Really?
big event.
What
I don't
about it?
know. There was just one, I don't know, man. It felt, I don't want to use the term milk toast,
Okay.
but like, I don't think I have another word for it.
Sure.
A lot of the systems that they were showing that were supposed to be like, this sets us apart was just like, okay, but like Destiny did this and the Division has done this. And like, I also am just not a fan of the art style. I definitely do not like the art style of this game. But I kind of just walked away being like, this just doesn't this it doesn't did not look good to me. It looked very much like I have a feeling that like gameplay wise, it's gonna feel very good in your hands.
I
It's not
hope
gonna be
so.
like I don't feel like because knowing Arcane, I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where it feels all loose or too tight. Like I feel like it's going to feel good. But just watching this, it's like, I don't know. I got like, this feels a little bit like Left 4 Dead. This feels a little bit like we're including The Division. We're including Destiny. We're including a lot of these things. And I'm like, ultimately, by the time we got like this, right? Like, you know what this looks like? Do you remember that old game that came out? I want to say it was on the PlayStation 2. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name, but there's like always like shots of like, it was like a really bad game where the guy's like shooting and his hands are like behind his back and he's just like flipping around. Like that's what the vampires look like to me.
I don't
Um,
remember that.
I'll have to pull it up and we'll talk about this post bear. But like that just like this right here, like what we're watching is like a person going stealth mode to sneak past some vampires to go up a lighthouse, right? None of that looks interesting.
Yeah, this I will say this specific part of it is didn't do much for me. Let me
But they like they
scrub
showed
ahead a little bit.
more. Yeah, they showed more stuff like this where it's like, here, this is like you can tackle this mission multiple ways. And I'm like, I bet you can, but I don't care. Like
Sure.
nothing about this game, like this game is to me at least stands out as like you should care about this game because of this. And it's like I just don't feel like we know exactly what the identity is of this game because it just feels and looks so much like 50 other different games we've already played before. And I think that's my biggest problem, right?
I will say I wasn't all glowing on this. Like I do think it moved the needle for me in a positive direction because my whole
Sure.
thing was I just don't understand like what I'm doing. I don't understand like what the thing about the game is. And while I don't know that they answer that question for me per se, I do feel like I have at least a clear understanding of what the game is.
Mhm.
But I do have a couple concerns in that we're not seeing any sort of a HUD. Does that mean there is no HUD? Which if there's not, that's fine. But we see the menu for like 2 seconds at one point. And in a game like this, the way a menu works and the way those systems works is very important. Like it feels very like crossing your I's, dotting your T's, like legal in a way, but like
Mhm.
it's not that's not the fun part. It's not the gameplay part, but like it is very important in how a game functions, if whether or not the menus and the way the systems work from a usability standpoint, from a like functioning standpoint, from a fun standpoint, and not seeing any of those at this point gives me concern
Yeah.
because I wonder, is it confusing? Is it, are they not done with it? Like, why are we not seeing it yet? So I'm a little concerned about that. And I'm also concerned that this game, they're really striking home and like, or writing home that like, hey, you can play this solo or multiplayer. But everything I'm seeing so far really gives me like, we just saw the menu for like half a second. Like, why are you
Yeah.
not showing us more? Um, eh, but what I was saying was, I am concerned that this is a multiplayer first game and not a single player first game. There's an audience for that if it is, but I'm not that audience, and I want this game because, like I said, I loved Arcane, or I love Arcane games. I loved Prey. I love Deathloop, and I just so yeah, I'm a little concerned on that point, but I totally understand where you're coming from. That like it just looks like video game to video game essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I think the thing is too, like it is worth pointing out that like The Division 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. I love The Division 2. And I think why I like The Division 2 so much is like drop in, drop out co-op. You can just but you a lot of times you can just do missions by yourself. Like so we get a little bit of a menu too. But like I don't know, like I think as I'm getting older, I feel like I'm becoming more like you. Um where I'm like I'm less excited about games that are like, yeah, it is single player, but you can play it multiplayer, where
Right.
it just kind of gives me like okay, so that script should be flipped, right? But I'm like,
Right.
how like I enjoy more like when I'm playing with my friends. Like
Sure.
I don't want to just play by myself or play with a bunch of randos. And so like that kind of just, I don't know. I kind of feel like I walked away from this trailer being like, this is one of those games that I just like it doesn't. I would say that I definitely would be way more excited to play Hi-Fi Rush, which just
Sure.
seems
Okay.
like a game that's much smaller
Yeah.
than a game like this. And I also don't want it to be like the Sony pony bullshit argument that's like, well, you don't like this because it's not Sony. If Sony released this, I would say the exact same thing. They're
Sure.
like, I'm just not interested in another game that is gonna have is that I'm just not gonna be able to enjoy because I don't have time for that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I do worry about the size of this game too, because like you normally if it's a game that you're supposed to play with people, usually they make them bigger so that you're playing longer, so that you're spending more time, more money, and that kind of thing in this. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that this because like Arcane typically doesn't make that kind of game, and that I think in a way that's the only reason I'm giving this game a shot in my mind is that like I
Sure.
trust Arcane. If this was being made by like Ubisoft, probably wouldn't care because they don't have a track record of this game style
Mhm.
for me with
Sure.
things like the two that I've already mentioned and then Dishonored as well.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I hope that they actually hit the May 2nd release date because it's already been delayed once or twice. I would think this has got to come out on May 2nd, but
I
we've
think they
seen we've
will.
seen crazier things. So,
Yeah.
but so now that we've talked about all the games, all 5 of them, general thoughts on the presentation and like do you think this was a success? Do you think like do you want to see more of these? Kind of what are your overall thoughts on how this went?
So I'm gonna give this a B plus.
Okay.
And I honestly, in reality, like when I got done watching it, I was like, a B minus is probably an accurate answer, but I'm gonna give it a B plus for one reason because this is the first time we've gotten an Xbox developer direct. So like I think that's they did well for like their first outing. Because let's be honest, respectively, the first outings haven't always been great for any of them.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah. The first state
so
of
I
play was not
definitely
good.
yeah, so, like, I definitely wanna give him some there. I think the Shadow Drop and Hi-Fi Rush was, like, a really, really cool thing to do. I definitely just for me, like, I definitely just fell short on a lot of the other stuff, but I don't think they did poorly on showing the other stuff. The other stuff just wasn't for me. But I definitely think that they could have probably done more to get it up to an A,
Yeah.
for it to be top tier because like I really the only big reveal was Hi-Fi Rush, and even that reveal was like Hi-Fi Rush is kind of it's from a bigger studio, but it's also kind of an indie game,
Right.
so you kind of like taking it. But if they were to come out to be like, "Hey, here's a big announcement. Here is we're gonna do one more thing. Here's Gears of War," and you get like a gear, even a teaser, something like that. Like I
Yeah.
really like so it's trading tit for tat, I suppose. But I think a B
Sure.
plus for Xbox on this one. Like this was much more entertaining, I think, than
Yeah.
last year's absolute slog of a
Sure.
presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Good
actually
lord.
I basically echo almost everything you say. I think the future of developer underscore direct excites me because
Mhm.
there will be a time when they reveal Fable on one of these,
Yeah.
unless it's revealed at like a bigger show. There will be a time that we see the next Fallout. There will be a time that we see the next Elder Scrolls. They've already said the next one will be entirely focused on Starfield. So like I like the implications of what this is or what this can be because I thought the production value was very, very good.
Yeah.
I would go as far as to say it might be of the 3 potentially the best because I think it's a really good mesh of showing the game and hearing from the developers and doing that
Mhm.
like interview style like because with Nintendo Direct especially it's just very much like here's this voice and we're going to show you next up is the next journey for Mario and then we get the Mario thing which I think works but I think for a game like Redfall, hearing from the developers why it's special helps sell the game for me. I don't
Sure.
need to be told why Mario Odyssey 2 is special because
Yeah.
I get it, right? So I'm glad that they're doing what works for them. So yeah, but at the same time, like you said, I didn't care about half of I mean there were 5 games. I kind of care about Elder Scrolls Online, but I'm realistically never going to play it. But I
Mhm.
don't care about Forza, I don't care about uh the Minecraft game. So like for the most part, I didn't care about the actual physical games that they were showing. So I'll give them some grace for that. That's not necessarily their fault. That's just personal preference.
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
let us know what you thought. Either comment in this YouTube breakout, or write us, mail at spotlightgames.net. Let us know what you thought, what you hope for in the next Xbox developer _ direct, and make sure we're calling it its real name, developer _ direct. So much so that when I was searching for the Redfall developer direct trailer, I searched in YouTube developer _ direct. I wrote out the word underscore, but that's just because I'm broken. Cayman,
yes,
let's talk. This will be, I think, a quick one, and then we can
Yeah.
round out with another topic of the show. It was announced this week that
Mhm.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge is going to be bringing Lara Croft Tomb Raider to Amazon by way of a television series. I'm pulling from Leslie Goldberg at The Hollywood Reporter. The Emmy-winning Fleabag grad is writing a TV series based on the popular video game turned action movie Tomb Raider. The project, which is in development stages, is the latest to stem from Waller-Bridge's recently renewed overall deal with the retail giant and streamer. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that Waller-Bridge is attached to write the scripts for Tomb Raider, and Waller-Bridge does not plan to star in the TV adaptation of the property, which spawned 2001 and 2018 film adaptation starring Angelina Jolie and Alicia Vikander, respectively, as the adventurous archaeologist. In addition to writing, Phoebe Waller-Bridge will executive produce the Amazon take alongside blah, 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 a bunch of other people. Doesn't matter for this audience. So my question to you, Cayman, what do you think of this? Do you think with the success of HBO's The Last of Us that and the talent of someone like Phoebe Waller-Bridge can finally make Tomb Raider work? Or do you think this is another failed attempt for this franchise?
Oh, brother. I definitely think that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is potentially one of the best, most witty writers out right now.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit bummed that this is her project, though.
Like you'd rather her be doing something different than this?
Yes.
Sure.
And look, she's amazing. I think Fleabag is amazing. She knows really well how to like write witty characters, and she's really good at being able to write like to really get you emotionally connected with the characters on screen. I don't know how that plays into something like Tomb Raider.
Sure.
I like the idea, but I do feel like maybe something original of hers that isn't already like steeped in the history of all of the other bullshit that comes along and baggage that comes with Tomb Raider. So
sure.
it makes me curious if this was something that she was approached to do, because I don't like this doesn't strike me as something that she like went into Amazon HQ and was like, I have an idea for a
sure.
Tomb Raider show.
I bet the reason, if she wasn't the one that pitched it, I bet it's because she co-wrote the last James Bond movie. So that like action wit from that franchise, I could see because I mean, so the original Tomb Raider way back when there were dinosaurs in it was a lot of a lighter tone, not a witty tone, but a lighter tone. It wasn't until like the 13, 12 remake kind of reboot that it went super like hard survivalist, like very serious storytelling. So I am interested in seeing, because look, we've gotten Tomb Raider on screen several times, and while a young Patrick liked the Tomb Raider movies with Angelina Jolie, it's not because they were good movies. And so I'm maybe Tomb Raider can work if the tone is more light and like bantery, and I don't know, maybe not. But so I'm interested in it, but I would agree with you that I go forth with cautious optimism on this, because I worry that with the success of HBO, everyone's going to be like, okay, what's the other thing we can do now? And I hope that doesn't mean we're going to get a lot of like dribble because of it, but we'll see.
Yes, we will.
But
sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but yes, we will.
Yes,
get a lot of dribble.
We certainly will. I mean, it's what we've gotten almost every single time until this point. So it only makes sense that trend doesn't just go away because of one thing.
Yeah.
But Cayman, speaking of a PlayStation game, I want to talk a little bit about PlayStation, because they just released, when was this? This was very recently. I'm not seeing on YouTube, I think, when it was released, within the last few days. They released a a live action advertisement on the television in which they kind of showcase games that have already come out on the PlayStation 5, games that will be coming out on the PlayStation 5. And there's a little bit in this trailer that has got the internet a rumbling and a tumbling, wondering, is PlayStation teasing the return of Uncharted? Because, and before I press play, I think it's worth mentioning a story we didn't get to talk about last week just because of the show that we did last week, reviewing the Callisto Protocol. There, Neil Druckmann said in an interview that Naughty Dog has essentially moved on from the Uncharted franchise, and they are considering moving on from The Last of Us if they don't have a story to tell, which, spoiler alert, they got a story to tell. It's going to be The Last of Us Part 3. It's coming. I think that was just his way of saying, like, it doesn't matter the franchise. If we don't have a story to tell, we're not going to do it. But he was being coy, but I do take him at his word that at least for the distant future, they are done with Uncharted. But that doesn't mean that PlayStation is done with Uncharted. So let's watch this trailer. Let me know if you can hear it. And then let's talk about it.
This is live from PS5. Let's go now to our first story. The good people of Manhattan woke up to a gift from their favorite hero as he delivered a gang of criminals on something of a webbed platter.
Historic scenes unfolding in San Francisco.
Leroy, the first of her tribe to have laid eyes on this scene in over 2,000 years.
Oavsett om det här är filmvintern eller inte.
お伝えしてます。後ろをご覧ください。召喚獣同士の戦いは激しさを増してます。
Unsure whether to call a doctor or a gardener.
Experts are linking all of these events to an increase in activity on PS5.
Story's coming a little faster. Ship crash lands on this now at breakneck speed. Sorry to cut you off there.
Shades of blue.
Unprecedented in today's
Let's go right now.
This was live from PS5, bringing you the extraordinary.
So it is certainly a blink and you miss it moment.
I think I caught it.
But we cover Spider-Man, we cover Horizon, we cover Stray, we cover Ratchet, there's like a quick Ghost of Tsushima moment. But then there's this moment, if you're watching on video, there's a woman with a torch in a cave. And then it comes back ever so briefly, a few seconds later with her, let's see if I can find it in the scrub, with her going up to that object and kind of blowing on it. You know what, let's do this. I opened up let's go to this tab. This is from the Game Informer. I pulled some shots from their website.
Okay.
So this is the second shot in that trailer. So this is the first, and then this is the second. And so everything else, the icons is referring to Final Fantasy 16 upcoming. We got like everything is accounted for in this trailer, except this. And people online seem to think it's Uncharted, and I think it makes sense, Cayman, and I'm curious what you think based on this information.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, out of all of the PlayStation properties, I think that's really the only one that makes sense for.
Unless it's Tomb Raider, I guess.
I don't think Tomb Raider, they don't own the rights to Tomb Raider, and everything that they've had are all things that are like first-party release games. So Tomb Raider doesn't make sense for me. The only other thing I could think of is potentially they're talking about Horizon again. But even that doesn't make a lot of sense for what we're seeing on screen with the torch, with the fact that she's dressed like that. That also doesn't, like, she's wearing the shawl that Nathan Drake wears. So, like, I think my thing is, like, maybe we should, like, you can, or maybe, I mean, once she's got the grappling hook. So that's another tell for me. She's got the,
down here.
Yeah, she's got everything that would be Uncharted, right? So here's my one thing is, I don't know if this means it's coming back. It could just be a nod to the fact that Uncharted is one of their biggest properties. And they've done this in the past before with things like Crash Bandicoot. They've done in the past with, I think, you know what this could be? This whole trailer. This could potentially be the first teaser we get for PlayStation All-Stars 2. PlayStation All-Stars 2, guys. Calling it today.
All right. I mean, you've been right in the past with these bold predictions.
That's a prediction that will never come true. That shit is never coming true. But it is interesting because they are showing, like, everything they've showed has been, like, within the last 2 years. Like, we got Destiny 2, which I mean, obviously, one of the leaks is apparently Lightfall, the new Destiny expansion, is going to be part of PlayStation Plus. We got Spider-Man, including Miles Morales.
Yep.
We get God of War Ragnarok. We get Horizon Forbidden West. Stray, as you mentioned. So we're getting a Final Fantasy 16. That's the only one I can think.
Right?
Unless maybe it's God of War. But even that doesn't make a ton of sense.
No.
Ratchet and Clank? Yeah.
So there are two technically not first party games featured in this trailer. One of them is Stray. Technically it's not a first party. It is an exclusive though.
Sure.
And then the other, they do feature Callisto Protocol ever so briefly, but that's because they have like a what do you call it? Like a deal for advertising. So anytime you see a Callisto Protocol deal, I'm not finding it here, but there is a moment.
Yeah, it's another kind of blink and you missed it.
Yeah, it's a blink and you missed it thing. Yeah, we got Gran Turismo. So they have that that partnership at the moment, and so it's the only thing that doesn't. The only other thing that I can think of is that potentially this is them saying like Uncharted Lost Legacy because you play as Chloe there, but because there is a potential here if it is a continuation of Uncharted that would include spoilers. So they're like with the way that the fourth game ended, potentially this is a character from that situation. If you remember what I'm referring to, I assume you do.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't want to, in case. I mean, I think it's a 7-year-old game. We could spoil it probably, but yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see. I find it sus, to use a word of the times, that everything else is accounted for.
So there it was back in the day, and I'm trying to remember who it was who was rumored to do it, and part of me wants to say it might have been Sony Bend was rumored to potentially be remaking the first Uncharted game under Naughty Dog supervision. I want to say it was either that or Sony San Diego, but that doesn't seem right to me.
I know there were rumors. I don't remember of it being specifically Uncharted 1 remake. It very well could have been. I don't remember what about Uncharted it was, but I do remember there were rumors. I think it was either like a San Diego or like a Santa Monica team.
Mm-hmm.
It was someone in the Sony San family that was rumored to be working on an Uncharted something. So maybe that's announced soon.
But yeah, okay, so here's the thing. Days Gone. Not in that at all.
Well, it's a dead franchise, right?
Yeah, but Uncharted is technically a dead franchise now.
Or is it?
See, that's the thing. So what makes me think is if we start using that brain power, and we put two and two together and be like, okay, well, you guys keep saying Uncharted is dead, and you're showing us like a little snippet of something that looks very Uncharted, but we don't see any snippets of Days Gone. It's like, why are you bringing? Because we know Ratchet and Clank isn't dead. We know we're getting more Ratchet and Clank. That game was fucking massive.
Yeah. I'm sure there's an Insomniac team working on the next Ratchet right now.
Do we know who Blue Point is? Like what they're working on yet?
We don't know. I don't think we know what Blue Point's working on. It could be maybe
I know they've said that they're working on an original property, but the question is an original property to them? And when we say original property, are we saying new property it is going to be a new game from an existing property?
Because here's the thing. This video, before it was published on YouTube, to a channel that has 14.6 million subscribers, before it was aired on television across the world, lawyers looked at this, executives looked at this, C-level people looked at this, and every frame was approved by a team or teams of people. So there's no way that this was not intentional.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think the internet might be right on this one. That I think we might be.
So.
Yeah, I think that there's an Uncharted in our future. Because also, to go back to your point about Ratchet, I think we're fools to think that such a successful franchise would never come back.
Mm-hmm.
And if Naughty Dog is on record saying we are done with Uncharted, PlayStation would be fools to not say, okay, then who's going to make it for us?
Yeah.
Because I'm not necessarily someone that wakes up in the morning and goes, really hope that we get a new Uncharted announcement today. But if we do, I'm going to be excited.
Oh,
because
I'm
I love the franchise.
That wakes up every morning says that because
Sure.
Uncharted is categorically is my favorite franchise.
Yeah.
I love those games. I would love to step back in the shoes of that world. I think that it's just so beautiful, and everything about that game always feels really good. It doesn't matter which one. So my thing is, there is one of those games that does not feel very good to play now. I think 2 and 3 still feel really good. 4 obviously feels amazing, but 1 kind of sucks.
1 kind of sucks.
1 kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. Look, this is my favorite franchise. 1 kind of sucks.
I mean, it came out in what, 2007?
Yeah, so it was like a launch title for the PlayStation. I think it came out in 2006. Honestly,
might have been.
Look, it didn't age very well. There's a lot of stuff. So like, I could definitely see them being like, "Fuck it," with Naughty Dog's approval and their guidance. Let's remake Uncharted 1 and kind of start, like, see if there's a lot of interest now.
Do you think they would be more likely to start over telling Nate's story? Because in order to do that, you probably got to get Nolan North, you got to get the whole team back. Or do they start over and reboot the franchise with new characters?
That's a good point.
I kind of would rather them reboot it with new characters.
I would be.
It's riskier.
It is definitely riskier. And honestly, like, I feel a bit of nervousness. Especially if they're rebooting it and it's not under Naughty Dog.
Fair.
Because, and don't get me wrong, like, this version of Naughty Dog now is very different than Naughty Dog when they made the first Uncharted game.
100%.
We had Amy Hennig, who was heading that shit up and did an amazing job. She's wonderful, especially when it comes to like pulpy action stuff. Just top-notch shit. And the thing is, the story of Uncharted 1 still holds up really well. And a lot of those story beats hold up super well. It's just the gameplay itself, there's like just weird spikes in difficulty. And like some moments just don't feel very good. And the gameplay is very loose and just doesn't feel like the other games. Yeah. Like you could definitely tell like they matured a lot in their development cycles going into 2 and 3 respectively. But yeah, no, I mean, it definitely be riskier, but I could also see them taking a different approach where it does follow up where Uncharted 4 ends, or we end up in a situation where we follow characters like Chloe or something like that, where we get to see what they're up to in this new world. And I mean, I think it would be interesting. I'm not going to turn down. I'm not going to turn down seeing more, like getting more Uncharted. I think I just would approach it a little bit differently if Naughty Dog's not the one who's heading it.
I was just visited by a muse, Cayman. The answer just came to me like a silver bullet. This franchise is being rebooted. They are telling the Nathan Drake story. And who's playing Nathan Drake?
Oh, God damn it.
Tom Holland. Tom Holland. We're getting Tom Holland as Nathan Drake video games. They're doing the whole video. Timothy Chalamet would be amazing though. Sully as Chris Pratt, or Chris Pratt as Sully. But I mean,
never mind. I take it back. Just kill it. Don't just kill it right now. I don't need it nor want it.
I don't know. If they have the money,
you don't know. I do know. Please kill it.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, folks. But yeah, let us know what you think. Do you want more Uncharted? Do you think that's Uncharted? Tell us everything. Tell us nothing. Whatever you want to do. Just come on over. Come to the comments. Tell us. Cayman, why don't we wrap up the show? We're going to bring it back to the end with a little update to the calendar.
Bring it back to the end. Bring it back to the end.
So here's a little update, and then if we're so inclined at the end, we'll do a little just a few minutes of spoiler corner. So PlayStation Plus right now, or not right now, February games have been leaked, but this guy has leaked the list to the last like several times. So this is it. It's going to be Destiny 2 Beyond Light. It's going to be Ollie Ollie World. It's going to be Evil Dead the game and Mafia Definitive Edition. I gotta say, pretty strong month.
Yeah, no, I think this is solid. Anyone out there who wants to play Evil Dead the game, just hit me up. I would gladly get back in and play with you because that game is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, this is a game I will definitely be downloading. I remember when we did, I don't even remember which episode it was, but I said I wanted to download. I think it was the Game of the Year award situation. But I wanted to download it and give it a shot. And Mafia Definitive Edition, I played the original Mafia way back. Like that could be a fun if we're in light season, backlog just doesn't feel right, but I want to play a little Mafia. That could be fun. I unfortunately already purchased Ollie Ollie World on a Switch, but maybe I'll play it on a PlayStation because I'm not playing it on my Switch. That's for sure. And then Xbox Game Pass, actually also Nintendo Switch Online, GoldenEye 007 has been released.
Did you play it on Game Pass? Because I've been hearing a lot of things about the Switch version.
I did play it on Game Pass a little bit, and I played the first level, and I had a great time. Honestly, the game is ass. The game is pure ass. Like we remember it being great. It's not a good game, but I had fun with it because it was fueled by nostalgia.
Sure.
And I'm always I always have been, always will be hot for Pierce Brosnan.
So
granted, this looks like a Pierce Brosnan who was melted in a microwave, but it's Pierce Brosnan nonetheless.
Okay, so here's the thing about this for anyone out there who wants to play. Apparently, on the Game Pass version, the Xbox version of the game, you have full control of the analog sticks. It has been made to work with that. However, there is no analog stick for the Switch version, which
you have to D-pad it.
You have to D-pad, so you cannot move your camera, and apparently the controls are miserable unless you have these currently sold out Nintendo 64 controller, which
the
is
Nintendo 64 controller that I've tried to buy 7 times, but it immediately sells out every time it's in stock.
Yeah. So apparently, if you want to play online and play with your friends and do multiplayer mode, it is almost completely unplayable.
How do they always do this? How does Nintendo fumble the bag every fucking time with these online releases?
Honestly, at this point, it's kind of comical.
I mean, it kind of is, but like it's such a shame because the Game Pass version, you can't play online multiplayer. It's some weird licensing agreement deal. Yeah. You can only play online with friends on the Switch version. You can play couch multiplayer on the Xbox version, but man, what a shitty thing. But the Xbox version runs great from the little bit I played. And then also, as we mentioned a lot earlier in the show, Hi-Fi Rush out now on Game Pass. And then Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is out now on console. I guess they ported it over to work with an Xbox controller instead of a mouse and a keyboard. So if you're a fucking nerd and want to play Age of Empires 2, it's out now on Game Pass. And then a couple updates. Sadly, Star Wars Jedi Survivor has been pushed back by 6 weeks, but they did say that apparently the game is done. They're just bug fixing. So I say sadly, I'm fine with it.
Honestly, it was releasing, I think, like the same week as Resident Evil 4 Remake. So this is probably for the best anyway.
Yeah.
Because that does give us a little bit more time to like actually enjoy. Like we can now enjoy both games separately. I'm more inclined to play this day one now, knowing that it's a month back. So I actually think that this is even better.
Yeah. And with them saying we're just doing this to polish. Fantastic. The first game was so beautiful and perfect. So yeah, give it to me polished on April 28th, 2023. And then finally, there's a new Hitman mode out for Hitman 3 called Hitman Freelancer that is essentially turning Hitman into a roguelite. And I got to say, once I have more time on my hands, I want to play the shit out of this because I love Hitman. And this sounds like a really fucking cool mode.
That sounds awesome.
The Hitman community, not that I'm like, I don't, keep tabs on it, but the people that I do follow that like Hitman have been like, this game rocks like this. So I'm excited to try that out. So if you are a Hitman player, check it out. I think it's live now, I'm pretty sure. So go give it a play. And that's it for our show. If you want to stick around after we sign off, we're going to do a little Last of Us show spoiler discussion. Only a few minutes. I've already kept Cam in an hour and 17 minutes. I don't want to keep him any longer. But let's say if you enjoyed the show, share with your friends, call your mom, call your dad, call your grandma, call your grandpa, call your brother, your sister, anyone in your life. Doesn't matter who they are to you. Tell them about the show that you enjoyed it. But fuck Keith. Don't butt fuck Keith.
I mean, unless he likes it.
Right. If it's consensual.
He gives consent, yes.
As long, we're all about consent on Spotlight Games. Check us out on YouTube at Spotlight Games Pod. Go give us a follow on Twitch, twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. Twitter, Spot Games Pod, Instagram, TikTok, Spotlight Games Pod as well. Safe Trash Cinema at Safe Trash Cinema on all socials. Isn't that right, Cayman?
That's it.
And Spotlight TV at Spotlight TV Pod on all socials. You'll get a little bit of a glimpse of what that podcast is like here in the next few minutes. But Cayman, where can they follow you if they want to follow you on socials?
Yeah, you follow me at Kid Cayman on Twitter. Honestly, I don't really ever post on anything other than Twitter, but even then I rarely do that. But hey, like you said, Save Trash Cinema at Save Trash Cinema on all socials, and we post there. So
hell yeah. And I also want to mention, I've been meaning to mention this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I keep forgetting. And then finally, one of our sweet friends joined the Discord. We have a Spotlight Games Discord. So if you're still listening this far into the episode, I'm going to put the link in our bio, and not our bio. I mean, well, it will be in our bio too, but it'll be in the description of the podcast. I want to start utilizing the Discord. I'm not a Discord boy, so I'm learning a lot about Discord. And that's why I made this like a year ago, and I just haven't done anything with it. And then our friends found it without me telling them about it. So if you're a Discord person, come on over to our Discord. We'll figure out how the fuck to use it at some point. Cayman, that's our show.
Oh, it is.
So goodbye, everyone, unless you want to talk spoilers about The Last of Us. That's going to begin in 3, 2, 1. Spoiler warning, get out if you don't want to hear us talk about what the next episode might bring. Cayman.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about this on Spotlight TV this week, but we can't spoil shit over there because Jeremiah has not played the game.
Sure, because he's a loser.
He's what a loser. Nerd. Fucking nerd. Here's my question to you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to Pittsburgh this week.
Yep.
We're getting from the original OG trailer, the guy pretending, oh, I'm hurt. And Joe be like, I was on both sides. I've been on both sides, Eddie. I've been on both sides. I've been on both sides. Do you think we're going to get, like, how much Pittsburgh do you think we're going to, like, do you think this whole episode is going to be Pittsburgh? Do you think we're going to get, like, all that kind of action from the game? Like, what do you envision this episode to look like?
Yeah, I definitely. So we know we're going to get Melanie Linsky. She's going to appear. So I definitely, like I said on that episode, I was like, I definitely feel like she's going to be the head of like a raiding group or like the head of like a group of outcasts or something along those lines. She's going to be a villain. I do think this episode is going to be very action heavy. We had a very beautiful episode with, I mean, arguably the best episode of TV I think I've ever seen. And so as much as I love that, I think that the most logical next move is to pivot from like a very personal episode to a very action episode just to kind of satiate the audience a little bit.
Sure.
So I think that is going to be very heavy. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if they start including things that they've cut into this episode. So I think that we could potentially have where Joel, because we didn't get it because essentially if you've played the game or not played the game, whatever, who cares? You're still here. It's your spoilers, right?
Right. Everything's fair game.
Everything's fair game. In Billstown, you step in a trap, Joel gets yanked up into the air, and he has to essentially try to defend Ellie while in the air. I think we're going to get something similar to that. Like, I definitely could see that could be something that they work in, because that is like one of those big moments that everyone remembers. It does give me pause, though, because now Ellie has a gun.
Yes.
So the question is this going to be the moment? Like, is she going to, but I just feel like the way they set that up with her, like, snatching the gun up, hiding it real quick, like that's going to come back sometime later. So I don't know if it makes sense for this to happen now, but I could see them starting to fold some stuff in. I also could see that this is when we're going to see the bloater. I could definitely see that this is the episode where we get the bloater. I don't know when in the episode. It seems like something that would be like one of those like last 5 minutes is this massive like fucking bloater coming out and shit going insane.
Yeah,
because they don't. From the way it sounds, just from like from the episode 2 when they're talking about the different types of clickers and runners and everything infected.
Yeah.
They don't even mention that bloaters exist. So I'm wondering if Joel doesn't know that they exist either, and that would be fucking awesome.
See, well, when they're having that conversation, she's like, well, there's ones that can like throw balls of like spores at you or whatever, which bloaters do that. So my read on it, I agree with you in that I feel like they don't know what a bloater is, and that
Or
they're
they
gonna
think it's a
find out.
tall tale, it's a legend or
Right,
some shit
right,
like that.
but
Like, this doesn't exist. This is people being fucking idiots.
right, and maybe they don't throw things of spores because they've kind of said spores aren't a thing.
Yeah.
Although maybe in this capacity they could be, but they're not. It wouldn't infect you per se. Maybe it would like burn you or something. I don't know. But
Well, the scene that we've seen it though was like coming out almost out of the floor of somewhere, and there's fire everywhere, but we don't get like a good shot of that.
right.
So I'm kind of curious. Like,
Yeah, I could see. So two things I wanted to talk about with the bloater. I could see the bloater being if we ever get either the university or if we get the hospital in Salt Lake before they go, like right before the final chapter of the game. I could see them somehow working a bloater into one of those segments, perhaps. I mean, in the game there is a bloater in the university, but I could see it potentially being that. But I also wonder if because that kind of a moment, that big of an action set piece, if HBO does kind of how they do with Game of Thrones, feels kind of like it'll be a penultimate episode thing. Like episode 8, we'll probably get this huge whatever, whether it's out at like David's place or whatever. I don't know. But with this episode, to go back to it to a different point I wanted to mention with the gun that you mentioned, I have a little theory about the gun. I think because there's the moment in the game where it's that moment of like, okay, I trust you now. Here is a gun from Joel to Ellie. Now that she has it, I think in this next episode there'll be a moment where Joel's in trouble, and instead of like in the game in the hotel when Ellie picks up the gun and kills the guy, and then she like gets in trouble by him, like you didn't do. I told you to wait downstairs or whatever. But it's like, dude, I fucking just saved your ass.
yeah.
I think that moment will happen. It's just she's already gonna have the gun, and then we'll still get the like. Ultimately, he still chooses to like give it to her later or whatever, but he probably like takes it from her or something.
Sure.
I think that's how they're gonna play that moment. But maybe not.
Do you think there's going to be a moment where Joel realizes whose gun she has too? Because that's another thing.
That it's Frank's gun, sure.
That it is Frank's gun. That remember, because I wonder. The reason I mention that is I wonder if it plays into the fact that that gun. Because remember, Frank says that he traded strawberries for a gun.
Yo,
that could be the gun, and that's going to be like the catalyst of that moment is him being like that is Frank's gun, or him being like that is Tess's gun.
That is Tess's gun. Oh my god, came in.
Fuck, bro.
I never put that together. That's genius. I think that's as good a spot to end as any.
All right, I love it. Can't wait for that episode on Sunday.
Let us know if you do listen this far and you like these spoilers. Let us know if you like this little spoiler corner at the end of the podcast, because we can do them more if you like it. But if you don't want to be spoiled and you didn't listen to this, I guess you can't tell me. But anyway, that's it. Until we meet again.
Yeah.